Hey, hi there. Welcome to iCoding Club. Today we're going to talk about React hooks and its internals. And we are going to build a custom use state React hooks just to try to understand how React hooks actually worked internally. And to do that, we have a couple of things which we are going to perform. First, we're going to build a simple counter app with React's use state. Uh, we'll talk about a little bit the magical part of it, something which is really sometime make front-end engineer uh, a little bit tricky to understand. And then we will going to understand how that whole part work, the internals of the React hooks. And then we will going to update our code and replace the use state with completely custom made use my state in the plain JavaScript. So that's the agenda. Um, let's jump to the code now. So to start with, I have a simple code setup done. I use a create React app, but you can use any scaffolding app you like. All we need is just working React code. So I complete the boring part of it, the scaffolding of it, and so on. And now we have a basic index file which just say React hooks under the hook. If I run it now, it just say React hook under the hood as expected. Now let's first build a counter app, and let's see like how the whole use state work. And since it's not a video around the React hook per se, so we're not going to go deeper there. We're just going to finish it and just come back to the the custom hook part. So let's start by writing a counter.jsx, and this is the file we're going to use to build our counter app. Um, all I want here is to start with a count variable, and we're going to use state for this. So set count, and this we're going to pull with the use state, right? And just initialize with 0. Let's go come back here, and we're just going to display our count in big H1, and then we will just have one simple button which just say click to increment, or we can just say click to +1. And once somebody click on it, what we want is on click, and we just want to handle this part, handle click. All right, and just take the value of count and just update it. All right, nothing fancy, just very simple stuff. Let's see how it's working. If I let me just first import it here. Counter, and just closing thing. And all right, so far so good. Now let's go back to code. Now to make this application a little bit more interesting, what are we going to add? We're going to add one more functionality here. Um, that will tell us like if the count value is even or not, right? So we're going to do that. We can remove this props. We don't need it. And we're just going to have another variable which say is even, and we're going to set it is even and going to store it uh, in the state. We start with 0, so let's initialize it with true. And when we come here, we want to kind of validate that the value is even or not. So what we can do, the next value is even or not. So what we can do, we can say next count equal to count plus 1, and set this value here, and similar to set even, I'm just going to set set true or false depending on the value. So the very simple way to do that is to a moduli of it. So we're just going to say new count moduli by 2 equal to 0, and if that is true, it is an even number, otherwise it is not. So when that value is ready for us, what we can do here, let's create another block h2, and we're going to say is even, and let's put variable is even. If yes, we're going to if true, if we're going to say yes, otherwise we're going to say no. Simple as that. Let's refresh. So is 0 initialize with yes. 1, it's not even, that's correct. 2, it is even, that's true, and so on. So it's just working fine, nothing special so far. Basically, it's a simple working of React hooks. Now there's something interesting about this whole this application. The way the whole hooks work is very neat and clean and convenient. But if you think about it, if you have to implement by yourself, how are you going to do it? Um, it's almost magical that how the use state know the value is going to update, um, because we have two state use state here. How a use state will know that this particular value should return to this variable, and set even should be returned to this variable. How this whole mapping work, and that's what we're going to explore next. But before we go there, um, to write a hook, React asks you to strongly follow two rules. What are those two rules? Let's quickly check those out. And I promise you, those rules really uh, not only provide the constraint of the hooks, but it also going to let you think that why those conditions are there. And later on, when we go to the custom hook part, these rules will really help us to write the code. The first rule says don't call hooks inside a loop, condition, or a nested function. What it means that hooks should be always at the top level. It cannot be nested by some condition or something like that. If you follow this rule, you're going to maintain a very fixed, strong ordering of all the hooks on your code. And that's very essential. Let's quickly go to the next rule and then we go back to the code. Second rule says only call hooks from a React function. What is basically is trying to say that you cannot call it from the class component, React class component. You have to call it by the React functional component or by the another custom hook. So that's there. The second rule is not that much important for the rest of the video, so we're just not going to refer it again. But the first one is the base of all the React hooks internal, all the magic sitting behind of it. Now, what the first rule, because of first rule, you're always going to maintain the ordering of your state when you call a component. That's not going to change. If you have a handle click here, you can have one more hook here, but the sequence of it will always be fixed. So this will be the one, this will be two, and that will be the third one. So that is called the fixed ordering. And that's how kind of React kind of maintain the whole state. So to go a little bit more deeper, let's see in our one diagram. So this is one, this is our component. We have two variable. I just change the name here, but basically when the rendering happened, what React sees that which one is the first hook. and it's always maintain some kind of ordering or some kind of indexing for that particular hook. So as soon the in the first render, React sees that we have a hook. What it does, it's put a value here. So it's going to put an index, and then it's going to put the value val1, which is the initial value, the v1. So it's initialize the val1 with the v1 and just going to store it here. After that is going to create a custom setter, that is set val1, and using the closer, it's going to link it with or connect it with the index 0. So the set value 1 will always know that in the store table I'm at the 0th level. Then the rendering of the component continue, and then the another use state get called. And when it come here, since it was already called once, so after that call, the index count will increment it to 1. And React sees that there is another use state, so it's just going to put that value here. So we already have 0th, so we're going to have 1. And then the value what we have is going to repeat the same thing. So going to put the set value there and create another custom setter for that particular value, set value 2, and then it will be linked with the index 1. And that's what React or the hook system going to store internally. And after this, what happened when the next rendering happened, the following rendering? What React going to do is it's going to render it again, and before it start rendering it, the whole React thing going to reset the counter to 0. And when set to 0, what it does is when it find the first use state, it see, okay, in my index table, in my store table, for the 0th one, what is the value I have, what is the set value we have, what is the function we have it, and it's just going to return it back to the value 1 and set value. That's how it get the value as well as the function back. Getting my point? So it's again going to pull it from the store table and then put it back on the statement. Same thing will happen here as well. Now, when the use state get called, the hooks counter will increment and get incremented to 1. It will look into the index in the store table that what value I have corresponding to record 1, and then the same value get put back to the value 2 and set value. So no new setter will get called. It is just basically what we're going to reuse it from what the use state stored in the table. One thing you have to understand is that the the React makes sure that the use state get created in the context of the component. So every React component will get its own separate use state and use state context. So that's why uh, the the hooks for one component differ from the hooks for the other table, other components, and that's how it's worked. And definitely in the code, let's say if you have handle change and you try to set a value, it will see in the table because it's already pulled from here. So it will call here, and this particular function get called, which is internally get called from the use state system, and then how it's going to update the value and then return back the value 1. With that process, after the set change, handle change, the new value will come back here. But React will not know because um, the value has changed, but nobody told to React. And that's what the whole React ecosystem or React function component ecosystem will take care of it. That whenever the value get changed, it provides some kind of information to React that hey, the update happened and it's time to re-render your component. And hooks will make sure the React will make sure that particular component, only that particular component uh, where the state change happened, that particular component get re-rendered, and that's how the new value show up on the screen. So I hope this whole concept makes sense, and this is those documented well, documented on the React documentation. It's just not clear completely that how it's actually work, and thought to explain it here. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a custom set state hook, and then the whole functionality what I just explained will be much more clear. All right, so see you in next part where we're going to create um, a custom hook. All right, so we finally reached to the best part of this video where we're going to implement a custom React hook, and we will use the use state in this case. So to do that, let's create one file here. We'll call it hooks hooks.js, and in this file, definitely we're going to have our use state function, right? And just to differentiate with the React, what we're going to do, we're going to call it use my state, just for the clarity purpose. And now let's export this particular function from this file, and we're going to import it into our counter app. So we can get rid of use state, and matter of fact, we can get rid of the whole line because React 17 onward, you don't even have to import React. So what we're going to do, we're going to import the file dot slash hooks and our custom hook function here. Use my state true. That's good. So the basic part is done. And now what we're going to do, we're going to start writing our code. So a couple of things we know that we're going to need one indexing. So what we can call it like hooks index, and we can initialize with a 0. That will be our first value. And we're also going to need a store where we can keep our the value and setter pairing, right? So that will go here. Now let's start implementing it. Use my state, we know what is the structure of it, so we can kind of start working on that part. So that has to be initialized. It should have some kind of initial value, which we can pass it as function. And we're going to have the value, right? And that's something we will figure out how we're going to get it. And then we're also going to have the setter, which we need to return it. So this is also a to do for now. And then this guy return the value and setter. So the basic structure of the setter is done. Now what we have to do actually when we run on the first time, if you remember uh, the diagram what we covered earlier, we have we have the logic into two parts: the first rendering logic and the following rendering logic, right? So for the first one, what we can do, we can write some code like um, check if the store has the value already, or do we have anything already stored in the store. So just let's call it store, and we're going to check that in the hook index, do we have any value or not? If it is undefined, then it is our first render case, right? Otherwise, it will be following as well as first render case, following cases, right? So what we're going to do, if we are on the first case, what we need to do, we have to initialize the value and we have to create a setter. So let's do that. So we can have store dot push, and the value part is clear. That will be the initial value which get passed. But what about the setter? How are we going to get it? So let's create one factory for this. We will call it setter factory. And the setter factory will give us the setter method depending on the what is your index, right? So let's implement the setter factory here. Function setter factory, and this guy will get the index as the argument, and it's going to return a setter. So that will be a function, and we call it setter, and setter will be the setter what would will be called here. So normally it's always get called with a value. So whenever that value happen, or whenever we get that value, what we have to see for this particular index what value we have in store, and if we have the value there, then just kind of reset the value. So store and index dot value equal to this value, the which get passed now. All right, so let's clean up a little bit. Right, so now with this one, what we have is basically get pushed the store value, and if we come here and by this state we should have the both the value and the setter on the zeroth index, which is the first value. So what we can do, we can just do a store, and in place of putting a 0, what we can see, like, what is the current value of indexing. So we can just get that value, and same thing we can do for setter as well. And this will give us the both the value and the setter. Uh, After this, basically, this is the first run. What we have to do, we have to be ready for the next run. So that's why we can just increase the index value to 0 for next run. Now the basic structure of the code is ready, but if we go back to our image, there are two more things we have to do when we kind of ready for the next run. That is, first, when the value is set, we have to inform to React that the data has been updated, and second is reinitialize the value or reset the value to 0. So these two things we have to take care of it. For the first one, to inform the React and make React re-render the whole page, um, it's a little bit tricky. We don't have any clear API exposed from the React which can do that. So what we're going to do, we're just going to have some kind of workaround. We don't want to spend too much time there. So one simple workaround is we're not going to wait for that particular event. What we're going to do is we just going to rerun or re-render our application in every second, or maybe in a half of second, right? What it will do is, like, it will just re-render our component in every 5 seconds, and in case the new value is there, it will just going to take that value and render the screen. It's very equivalent of in absence of this, the ideal would be that um, the hooks inform to the React that the value has changed and now it's time to re-render. But for this, everything need to be in some kind of a React ecosystem or React control place. React has something called use um, with React hooks, or there's some kind of high order function which kind of take care of this whole logic. But we're not going to go in that much complex part, and that's why this is the simple workaround which we're going to use in our code. Second is, like, when you re-render it, before you re-render, you have to make sure that the hook reset, or the value has reset to 0, that this value is reset to 0. um, so one typo here, it should be plus equal to 1, that we are incrementing the index value. Now what we have to do is we have to kind of reset the value. So what we can do, we can export it, and this is also a little bit of workaround in absence of having the whole hooks context. So reset hook, index, and what this can do is just initialize the or reset the value back to 0. All right, and what we can do, this particular function, we can call it here import reset from hook. And before we re-render, we're just going to reset everything. All right, let's go back here. So let's see, like, if our code run fine with the new case, right? So let me just get my, so let's refresh it. Is even yes, and with 2 it's yes, with 3 it's no. So seems like it's all working fine. And you can see there is a delay also. That's because we have put the 500 millisecond delay here. That's all. This I kind of really wanted to cover, that how you can kind of implement a custom hook um, in just plain JavaScript. And that's what it's all about. Just following some strict React hook rule, you can actually build the logic which can handle the whole state management without extra parameter like the key value or something like that. So that's all I wanted to cover. If you really like the video, just make sure that you like and subscribe the channel. Feel free to put the comment in case you like the video, or in case you have some suggestion or feedback. Just please make sure that you put on the comment section. Thank you.